Rosa Parks and the Bus to Freedom, Chapter 4. In 1924, when Rosa was 11, the Pine Level School closed. For most local black children, that was the end of their education. But Rosa's mother, Leona, was determined that Rosa should get more schooling. Leona was still teaching in a town far away from Pine Level. She took a second job as a maid in order to send Rosa to a private school. To attend her new school, Rosa had to move 25 miles from Pine Level to Montgomery, the capital of Alabama. There she lived with an aunt. Her new school's name was the Montgomery Industrial School, but Rose and everyone else called it Miss White's School. Miss White's school was an unusual one. Its 250 students were all black girls, but its founder, Alice White, and all its teachers were white women from up north. They had come to Alabama because they believed black children deserved as good an education as white children. Very few Southern white teachers were willing to teach black students. In fact, Miss White and her teachers were disliked by many white people in Montgomery. Some of these people told them to go back to the north and mind their own business. Racists burned the school twice, and Miss White rebuilt it both times. At Miss White's school, Rose and the other children were taught English and science. They also learned practical skills, including cooking and sewing. Rosa loved sewing and was soon making most of her own clothes. Miss White students also spent a lot of time learning about Christianity and proper behavior. Every school day included time for prayers and Bible study. The girls were not allowed to dance, wear big earrings, straighten their hair, put on bright lipstick, or even go to the movies. Some girls rebelled against these rules, but Rosa approved of them. She was still a little lady who valued being neat, kind, and respectful. Rosa fit in right away. Years later, she said, "I liked going to school at Miss White's. It was not hard for me to adjust to being taught by white teachers because I had learned back in Pine Level, especially from the old woman who used to take me fishing, that white people could treat you like a regular person." But living in the big city of Montgomery was a shock for Rosa. In tiny rural Pine Level, there weren't any public facilities such as libraries, restaurants, or hotels. While white people and black people didn't mix much, there weren't many signs of official segregation. But Montgomery was different. There, for the first time, Rosa saw whites-only signs everywhere. There were white restrooms and black restrooms, white restaurants and black restaurants, white phone booths and black phone booths, white libraries and black libraries. Public swimming pools were for whites only. Trains and buses had white sections and black sections. Movie theaters had separate entrances for white people and blacks had to sit in the balcony. Rosa noticed that facilities for whites were new and clean. Areas for blacks tended to be old and run down. Years later, Rosa remembered noticing the whites-only and colored drinking fountains. She wondered if white water tasted different. Sometimes the rules of segregation were hard to figure out. One hot summer afternoon, Rosa and her cousin Annie Mae walked into the store that had a lunch counter. They each asked for a soda pop. The white waitress told them that she couldn't sell them soda. She suggested that they buy ice cream cones instead. But Rosa didn't understand. Why couldn't they have soda? Finally, she got it. Because soda came in a glass, the girls would have to sit down to drink it. Black people weren't allowed to sit in the restaurant, but the waitress could sell them ice cream cones, which they would have to carry outside to eat. Other times, segregation led to situations that were just plain ridiculous. A few years later, when Rosa was a young woman, it became the in thing for wealthy white men and women to get suntans. As a result, some white people were darker than light-skinned people who were considered black. People like Rosa's grandfather. Business owners whose customers were white became worried. What if they accidentally let in black customers while kicking out suntanned whites? In Washington, D.C., some hotel owners actually hired race experts to stand in the lobbies and try to figure out who was black and who was white. As Rosa spent more time in Montgomery, she became used to the rules of segregation. On the outside, she did not show how much those rules bothered her, but she found ways to express her feelings privately. For instance, as she got older, she refused to drink from colored water fountains. No matter how thirsty she was, she would wait until she was in a place where she could get a drink and not feel insulted. She refused to use colored elevators. Instead, she would use the stairs. In small, quiet ways, Rosa was becoming a rebel. Thank you.